Hello and welcome to episode 435 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always, joined by Evan Silva. It is here. The NFL regular season is upon us. We will be playing DFS and betting props. We are already betting props and playing DFS. Almost makes you feel happy to be alive. Evan, how's it going?
Good. We just banged out the NFC team by team. We'll be doing these all year. AFC today.
Yeah, going to do the AFC today. I really think this is going to be valuable all year as it was last season for people. We will recap the usage. We'll look forward to the next week. We'll look back at the previous week, things we are watching going forward. For this show, week one, we're going to talk about DFS. We're going to talk about trades, waiver wire, things that we're watching in week one. As I mentioned, DFS season, aka the best season, is here. This is when it really matters to have the most reliable data and analysis. I've been saying it all summer, but no one takes projecting how football players will perform on Sundays more seriously than us. On top of that, we've got the ownership projections, Silva's matchups columns, which is already up, showdown analysis, which is already up, and really everything I think you need to win at DFS. Annual, weekly, and monthly options are available on the site. Also, best ball season is not over just yet. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have this absurd $2 million to first, $1 million to second place fantasy tournament running right now. Best way to put your knowledge to use. If you use promo code ETR when you sign up, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. It's really an unbelievable contest, and drafting now is great practice for any home league drafts you have remaining. All right, let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but what I'm looking at in week one with the Baltimore Ravens is Isaiah Likely. I mean, I never would have thought that's what I'd be watching in week one for the Ravens, but this dude looks like an incredible pass catcher on a team that is desperate for pass catching and a team that's willing to use 2 and 3 wide receiver sets at a really high rate. Now, I do think that Isaiah Likely is best detached from the line, and Mark Andrews is also best detached from the line. So I'm not sure how much Isaiah Likely can play, which is why I don't want to go overboard on him. But maybe they have some stuff in mind with his inline, or maybe they have both of them split wide at times. I mean, they have nothing at wide receivers. So I'm looking at that. Evan, what are you looking at with the Ravens?
Yeah, and the pathway just continues to be cleared for Isaiah Likely, who was a stud at Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina was like a legit good college team, and he was an absolute stud on that team. He was drafted in the 4th round along with – they used 2 4th-round picks on tight ends. They also drafted Charlie Kolar. Charlie Kolar went on injured reserve. So, again, the C's are kind of parting here, like definitely parting here for Isaiah Likely. And I mean, at this point, I expect him to be somewhere between 40 and 60% of the snaps in week one, I think.
Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins, we have to monitor his health as the week progresses. They signed Mike Davis. They signed Kenyon Drake. They kept Justice Hill. They've got dudes on their practice squad they can bring up. But that's what I'm keeping my eye on here for the Ravens is J.K. Dobbins' health.
Don't say that too loudly. J.K. Dobbins might come in here and just dunk all over you. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, if you say anything about J.K. Dobbins' injury status on Twitter, he's coming for the dunk. He's coming for the tomahawk dunk. So unbelievable. Bills. We've followed it all summer. I'm confident in my take on McKenzie versus Crowder, but I actually want to see it. And so on Thursday night, I will be hopeful, and I am very optimistic that Isaiah McKenzie will be the every down slot wide receiver in that Cole Beasley role in this explosive Bills offense. But it's not 100%. Like I could see them mixing in some Crowder. I could see them mixing in some other guys, but I really do feel like being McKenzie, we did take a McKenzie over 22.5 receiving yards in this game. That line is long gone, but I thought that was good for an over. So optimistic on Isaiah McKenzie for props. For season long, for best ball, I got a lot of Isaiah McKenzie. Evan, what are you looking for out of the Bills on Thursday night?
Thursday night, I want to see if they call more passing plays for Dawson Knox. O.J. Howard was cut at the end of training camp. I believe he resurfaced with Houston. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah. That is right, because I was worried about my Brevin Jordan shares.
Always worried about the Brevin Jordan shares. And then Quentin Morris, who they kept 3 tight ends, also Tommy Sweeney, the Bills did. And Quentin Morris, undrafted, kind of interesting guy, second-year undrafted free agent. He is not practicing. ahead of the Thursday night game against the Rams. We know Dawson Knox is going to play a ton. He played 87% of the Bills' offensive snaps last year, but are they going to call? Would they call more plays for him this season? I know people have been down on him because look, he had 50 catches and 9 touchdowns last year, and that's tough to repeat. But he's also clearly the Bills' best red zone target, and he's been an ascending player. He gets better every season. So could he have a bigger target share this year? And I mean, I think that the answer is yes. I think he wound up being a very fine pick as that like tight end 8, tight end 9.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't take him very much, but I think it's an interesting thought that he could have a different and better role this year. One other thing to watch with Buffalo is, are they actually going to use 3 running backs? That's everything out of the team suggests they're going to use Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, and James Cook. So we'll see if they actually do that on Thursday night. Cincinnati, one thing we talk about all the time with Cincinnati last year was there's just no questions. Like, we know how they're going to play. We know who's going to play. We know exactly how it's going to go. Joe Mixon's going to be the base back, Samaje Perine on pass downs. All 3 wide receiver sets are going to be the same 3 wide receivers. The only thing I can think of that to watch for is with their improved offensive line, will they be more pass happy? Will they start pushing towards those Bucks, the Chiefs level of pass happiness? I don't think they're going to do that, but they have at least some chance given their wide receiver core, given improved offensive line, given Joe Burrow another year removed from the ACL. And if they do, I mean, my God, Cincinnati could have just a huge offensive passing year. But go ahead on the Bengals.
No, that's what I was going to. That was what I was going to touch on. I would add to that. Can we get Joe Mixon in there on more obvious passing downs? Because they are bringing back Samaje Perine, they are bringing back Chris Evans, who they've talked up with a potentially bigger role, and they even kept Travion Williams, who is a decent player in the passing game, although I think he's primarily going to be a special teamer. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see.
Cleveland Browns, I'm looking for David Njoku usage. There were so many late round tight ends that I liked through this process. Albert O, Njoku, Gerald Everett, Molly Cox, Brevin Jordan, they all come to mind, but I'm kind of most optimistic on the ceiling for David Njoku. Of course, they gave him the 4 years, $72 million. I think he's going to play almost every snap, really athletic. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett is not ideal, but I want to see how many targets Njoku can earn, because in the past, he has not been a great target earner. They need it from him now. They need him to help and elevate Jacoby Brissett. So we'll see how that goes with David Njoku. Anything for you on the Browns, Evan?
Yeah, I did the Browns write up against the Panthers, and it's up on the site. And the way that it kind of worked out to me was like the Browns could absolutely end up building their passing game around David Njoku. Amari Cooper is a transplant, and I mean he's a good player. He's coming off one of his worst seasons. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones is like locked in as their number 2 receiver right now. He's sort of like a Marquez Valdes-Scantling type, like a vertical route runner. And then David Bell, a 3rd-round rookie who we like, but did miss half of camp, and he's a 3rd-round rookie. Like, he's locked in as their number 3, I think. So, there's not a ton there at receiver, and David Njoku is like the most tenured. He's got the biggest well, he doesn't have the biggest contract, Amari Cooper does, but he's got a really, really big contract. They committed to him the franchise tag. Then they gave him the extension. Like, he's going to play way more than he has in past seasons.
Yep. Let's go to the Broncos. Obviously, everybody's been watching how Javonte and Melvin is used. Last year, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon alternated series by series. I suspect this year that it might not be like that Melvin will be more of a breather back, a situational back instead of series by series. But we'll see there. The other thing I'm watching is that Albert O usage. Such weird stuff in the preseason with Albert O playing deep into the 4th quarter with all backups. Just really weird stuff. Still such a talented guy. And Greg Dulcich is on IR. So I'm still optimistic on Albert O, but there's like some piece of his preseason usage that gives me real pause. I actually want to see it with Albert O. Anything for you on the Broncos?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit more confident in Albert O, and I think we certainly both want to see him out there a ton. I just think that we're going to. I think he actually probably did need those reps in the new offense. He wasn't a big blocker at all at Mizzou, and I think he probably did need those reps. And they explained that was because they want to get him more reps blocking in live action. His backups they kept 3 tight ends, Albert O, Eric Saubert, who's played for 7 teams, and then Eric Tomlinson, who is like the most blocking tight end of all blocking tight ends. So I think that Albert O is going to be playing a ton. I think he's going to have a monster year. Sean Siegel, FF Contrarian of RotoViz, he had some prediction he likes to make bold predictions that Albert O would be the number 1 overall fantasy tight end this year, and that is legitimately in his range of potential outcomes.
Yep. Let's go to Houston. I'm excited, more excited than most for Houston. I think we know the deal on Dameon Pierce by now. I mean, everybody knows Dameon Pierce is going to be the feature back for Houston. We still expect Rex Burkhead to mix in on pass downs. I guess my question is just, is Davis Mills good enough to really have a plus offense, like not just an average offense, an above average offense? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Davis Mills, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, Dameon Pierce, Brevin Jordan to form, a league average or better offense. I know that's like a hot take, but I still think it's possible. So I'm excited to see what Houston can do. Anything for you on the Texans?
They added Tyler Johnson off waivers last preseason. Anybody who was playing DFS with us in the playoffs heard me talk about Tyler Johnson all the time last year. He never hit, just out there running wind sprints really in the slot. Tom Brady would, occasionally he'd get a target and then he'd just totally blow it. But he landed in a pretty good situation where he could eventually end up as the slot receiver between Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. Dameon Pierce on the Texans' final depth chart is listed as the starter. They initially, when they cut Marlon Mack, they initially put him on the practice squad. Now they cut him off the practice squad, so he's totally out of the mix. And then, did they cut Royce Freeman?
I'm not sure on that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we can look into that later. But I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch in the backfield of Dameon Pierce and Rex Burkhead. And Rex Burkhead is going to be a lightly used role player. And I think Dameon Pierce can come out of the gates handling 17, 18, 19 touches.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about this on Friday night. Dameon Pierce is only 4,800 on DraftKings week 1. Colts. I think the assumption is that Michael Pittman is going to take the leap and earn 25, 27, 28% of the targets from Matt Ryan. I'm optimistic on that. I think it's a good take. I don't think it's a lock, and maybe it'll end up being flatter than we think. And if it is flatter than we think in terms of target distribution, I'm excited for Mo Alley. I'm excited for Paris Campbell. I think there's other guys that can be used other than Michael Pittman. And Michael Pittman can still have a really nice year at 21, 22, 23%. The guys who earn 25 to 30% of targets are like the elite of the elite. And I think Michael Pittman can do that. I just don't know for sure. So I think it's worth watching how locked on Matt Ryan is to Michael Pittman, or if he's going to spread it around more. And I'm really hopeful on Mo Alley Cox. Been taking him a ton late, especially in best ball stuff. But yeah, what about you on the Colts?
Yeah, my thing is more narrative driven. And that's that the players have been just in all out praise of Matt Ryan, how crisp the practices have been, how much of a leader he is. And you can hear sort of like the undertones of them taking veiled shots at Carson Wentz, because it's just, I think it was, the quote from Pittman or Mo Alley, where they were talking about how last year everything was so disjointed. The quarterback wasn't telling you where to be, and Matt Ryan tells you where to be, and he helps you. And last year they were just out there playing like street ball. And now everything is organized and regimented, and the players love that. So I don't know. Matt Ryan's an old guy. He doesn't have he doesn't have great arm strength. He doesn't have great mobility, but he is he's very much a veteran, solid presence, and it's a really interesting year for the Colts.
Yeah, it reminds me of Phillip Rivers when the Colts got him. Like, who would you rather have, the Phillip Rivers, that version on the Colts, or Matt Ryan this year? I feel like they're kind of similar.
They did go 11-5 with Phillip Rivers, but I think I would take Matt Ryan.
Okay. By the way, everybody hates Carson Wentz. I don't mean everybody in the media. I mean, like, everybody he plays with seems to end up hating Carson Wentz. It's a weird. I wonder what he's doing. That's yeah. Anyways, Jacksonville. I'm just amazed by this James Robinson thing, man. 8.5 months since his Achilles. Sounds like he's going to be active week 1. Now, he didn't play at all in the preseason. Snoop Connor was the number 2 behind Travis Etienne. I don't know how much James Robinson's going to play if he's active. So we'll see there. And the other thing I'm watching with the backfield is this Travis Etienne pass game role stuff. There's been a lot of speculation from Tape Bros and tape grinders out there that we're overrating Travis Etienne's pass game ability. I'm not sure I buy that, but I want to see if Jacksonville does or not. Because if Travis Etienne doesn't have that elite pass game role, obviously he's not going to pay off, third, fourth round ADP. So I'll certainly be watching that. What do you think about Jaguar stuff, Evan?
Christian Kirk, I thought he was a screaming value throughout draft season. And I mean, we pumped him up and his ADP really never caught up with where I think that it belonged. So can he come out of the gate commanding a big time target share? I'm not a believer in Zay Jones. Josh Norris loves the guy. He's had like 3 good games in his, 5-year career. And then Marvin Jones, he's really old. And his underlying metrics were poor last year and got progressively poor as the season progressed. Evan Ingram is really interesting this year because he's got a lot of opportunity, but, historically he has always flubbed his opportunity. It sets up so nicely, I think, for Christian Kirk. He's a really good player, I think. He can play inside and out. We had Matt Harmon on, crushed in reception perception. I'm excited to see Christian Kirk in week 1 and beyond.
Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. My big thing is how much of the wide receivers rotate. I think it's going to be Juju and MVS on almost every snap, but I'm not like 100% sure on that because McCall Hardman and Sky Moore are likely going to mix in as well. How do they mix in? When do they mix in? How much do they mix in? I do think that Juju and MVS will be the clear guys ahead, but we'll see. What are you looking at on the Chiefs?
Yeah. Does Isaiah Pacheco have any kind of a week 1 role? Does Ronald Jones have a week 1 role? My guess is that it's going to be CEH mainly on early downs and then a lot of McKinnon in the passing game. Mm-hmm. But they've got 2 other guys there that, Pacheco in terms of he's got the best speed score in the backfield. And then Ronald Jones is probably the best pure runner in the backfield. So how is all that going to shake out? I think the Chiefs are going to have a great offensive line this year. I think they're going to have a great offense period this year because that's what happens when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But yeah, I mean, we're still in the process of figuring out, identifying usage at both the running back and receiver positions in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I think Isaiah Pacheco will be active for this game because he's their kick returner and he's going to play on a bunch of special teams. Just because Isaiah Pacheco is active doesn't mean he's actually going to play on offense. It's very possible for Isaiah Pacheco to be active and only play special teams. We'll see if Ronald Jones is active for this game or not. Let's go to Las Vegas. Aaron Rodgers' rapport with Devontae Adams is something like for NFL history. Like nobody saw as many targets, higher target share around the goal line as Devontae Adams from Aaron Rodgers. Will it be the same in Las Vegas with Derek Carr, shower narrative, and also near-death narrative? I don't know if you saw the story today, but apparently Derek Carr and Devontae Adams went whitewater rafting together and nearly died together while whitewater rafting. So we have that narrative going for us. But, obviously Evans talked a lot about having a slight fade on Devontae Adams because he's been going so high. I'm just really curious, does Carr lock onto Adams, or are we going to see big target shares for Renfro and Waller also this week? What about you on the Raiders?
What kind of a role is Zamir White going to have in week 1? I think that we've largely determined that Amir Abdullah is going to be the designated passing down back. Josh Jacobs is going to open as the starter, but, the Raiders they declined Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option. They added a bunch of RBs in the offseason. Zamir White, I think, is maybe just as good of a runner as is Josh Jacobs. And I'm very interested. Do they split it right down the middle? I think that could be the case in terms of carries, Josh Jacobs and Zamir White in week 1.
Okay, let's go to the Chargers. I'm looking at Gerald Everett, and maybe I'm a little scared that we've underrated Gerald Everett. I like him as a late round tight end, but maybe he can be more than a flyer. I mean, Jared Cook last year, and Jared Cook was old, couldn't move that well. He got 5.1 targets per game. Gerald Everett's going to have that role, and Gerald Everett, I think, is a better athlete. I don't know if he's a better player, but he's certainly a better athlete at that point in his career than Jared Cook, who was just kind of lumbering around out there. So I'm looking at Gerald Everett, and I'm also looking at Josh Palmer's role. Is he actually the every down number 3? Will he play in all 3 wide receiver sets? What about the Chargers for you?
Yes. Who's going to be the number 2 running back behind Austin Eckler? It seems like Josh Kelly is going to open the season in that role, but they did add Sony Michel late. And then at some point, I think that Isaiah Spiller is going to get healthy and rally a little bit. It's probably going to be a rotating situation, at least through September and maybe October even. But I'm keeping my eye on what happens in week 1.
For the Miami Dolphins, I've taken some Raheem Mostert lately. It just got cleared up with the Sony Michel thing. I think we expected that, but it just got a lot much clearer with Sony Michel. No longer a threat to Raheem Mostert. How much base work does Chase Edmonds get? Or is most of the base work going to be Raheem Mostert? I think it's a really interesting question because Chase Edmonds, if he gets 10, 11, 12 carries plus all the pass down work, Chase Edmonds, we've been talking about it all summer. He's going to smash his ADP, especially where it was before he started really spiking, if he has that role. And I think there's a pretty good chance that he does. Other thing for me on Miami is I think we assume that it's going to be super concentrated. Like Mike Gesicki's going to be phased out. Cedric Wilson's not going to earn a lot of targets. And so it's all going to go to Tua and Jalen Waddle. That's my base assumption. That's why I've been taking Tua and Waddle both in the top 4 rounds. But, there's some risk that other guys seep in more than we're projecting. So I'll be watching that. What are you looking for on the Dolphins, Evan?
Yeah, one of Leone's bold predictions is that Jalen Waddle is going to out-target Tyreek Hill this year. I did a main event draft with some buddies from back home over the last Friday night, and we got Jalen Waddle in the 4th round, late 4th round, and we were thrilled with that pick. So I hope that Leone's right, at least for the sake of that team. This offensive line was terrible last year, okay? But this year, their starting lineup projects to have a 1st-round pick, 2 second-round picks, Connor Williams, who they get a huge deal from Dallas at center, and then Teron Armstead, who we know has been one of the best left tackles in the league for a long time. Can this offensive line make a big rebound? The monetary investments and the draft pick investments that they've made suggest that it should.
By the way, I know we're not talking a lot about individual matchups here and how, Miami's offensive line interacts with their matchup and all that. We'll do all that on Friday night's show as it pertains to DFS. That will be for in-season subscribers on Friday night. Me, Evan, and Wiggins talking through all the viable plays in DFS. New England Patriots. Obviously, the running back thing. We've been talking about it all summer. How is the usage going to go between Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson and Ty Montgomery if he's active and Pierre Strong? Because I'm optimistic that it's going to be series by series, that Ramondre at worst is going to get some series to himself, and at best he's going to be the clear pass down back. But that's speculation for now. We will see how it goes. What are you thinking for on New England, Evan?
Yeah, all about Ramondre. The way that Bill Belichick has talked about Ramondre, he never really talks up his own players. What he actually does is he talks up the players on the other team that the Patriots are facing in a given week. But the way that he has talked about Ramondre and the improvements that he's made and how good he's gotten in the passing game and how much they trust him in blitz protection, that's not common for Bill Belichick to talk like that about one of his own players. So I don't know, it could just be classic coach speak, I suppose, but he doesn't really do the classic coach speak thing.
Yeah.
But that just keeps standing out to me. And look, I'm a Ramondre guy. I have been since last year. I definitely have like some sort of innate bias that I want to see him succeed because I've really liked him so much. So maybe that's seeping in, but I think he's a better player than Damian Harris is. And I know Damian Harris scored 15 touchdowns last year, okay? But I think Ramondre Stevenson is better than Damian Harris.
Yep. Yeah, really interesting to see how New England plays it. Speaking of better, let's move to the Jets here. And, I like Michael Carter. I think Michael Carter is a nice player. To me, Breece Hall should visibly run circles around Michael Carter and force the coaches to start starting Breece Hall, to start featuring Breece Hall. So will he do that? Will he start climbing ahead of Michael Carter? So I'm really interested in the usage there between Carter and Breece Hall and really how well Breece Hall can play, because I think he can force the coach's hand to really put him in a feature back role and Michael Carter in a secondary back role pretty quickly if Breece can play well right away. Second thing on the Jets is Garrett Wilson. Nobody wants Garrett Wilson right now. He ran as number 4 wide receiver for the Jets all preseason. It doesn't look like he's going to be much more than a rotational wide receiver in week 1. Obviously, there's all these quarterback questions. Nobody wants Garrett Wilson at all. He still has really good draft capital as a first-round wide receiver which typically, historically pays off. So I'm watching how much Garrett Wilson can get out there. Also, what do you think about the Jets?
Yeah, are we going to get Zach Wilson in week 1? Rich Cimini is saying that we're not. The Jets are like not going to tell us probably. But I mean, gun to the head right now, I think I would predict Joe Flacco to be their week 1 starter. I think that's actually good news for Elijah Moore. My really big question here is, will one of these pass catchers emerge and grab a significant, major stranglehold at the top of the depth chart in terms of target share? Elijah Moore would be the best bet. Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson weren't on the same page at all last year. The catch rate when Zach Wilson targeted Elijah Moore was pathetic, like well below 50%. Elijah Moore is really good with Joe Flacco. And they got Garrett Wilson, and they're going to play Braxton Berrios at very least in a rotational role, and Corey Davis, and Denzel Mims had a big final preseason game, and he could factor in for 10 snaps. They've got a bunch of tight ends that they can play. Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzoma. They use a 3rd-round pick on Jeremy Ruckert. Is one guy going to step forward and take charge in target share? I think it would be Elijah Moore. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, certainly like Elijah Moore's talent a lot. Let's go to the Steelers. What's the offense going to look like in the first time without Ben Roethlisberger? I mean, is it going to be explosive enough? Is it going to be aggressive enough to support the ADP of all these guys? Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, even Freiermuth started gaining some speed. Najee Harris goes late first round, early second round. I mean, it's hard for me to see this offense being efficient enough with their offensive line to support all those guys. I've had the Deontay Johnson fade on personally. Just seems just way too expensive, in my opinion, for someone who needs a lot of targets. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes without Ben, because it's been a long time since we've seen Steelers offense without Ben. What do you think about Steelers?
Yeah, I mentioned on the NFC podcast that my favorite NFC super late round pick had become Sammy Watkins by the end of preseason. The AFC, it's Jaylen Warren, who really won the number 2 running back job in Pittsburgh like weeks ago. All the Steelers beat writers started tweeting about it, and it was like, who the heck is Jaylen Warren? Undrafted dude from Oklahoma State, transferred there, 5'8", I've seen him listed at 215 and 204. I think he was 204 at his pro day. He's good in the preseason, and he easily beat out Benny Snell. Now, Benny Snell is terrible, but considering the fact that Najee Harris has a massive projected workload, he's going to take a lot of hits this year, and he already had a Liz Frank issue during training camp. I mean, I think Jaylen Warren makes a ton of sense as a super late round flyer. And then how long is it going to take for Kenny Pickett to overtake Mitchell Trubisky? I don't know. Where would you set the over-under?
Yeah, Kenny Pickett, I thought, played pretty well in the preseason.
Really well.
I think Trubisky will be okay and fine, but first-round quarterbacks, I mean, outside of Trey Lance, they just don't sit ever. And so, yeah, I could see easily before October's over, we see some Kenny Pickett. Let's go to the last AFC team, Tennessee. Well, Evan, we know we're going to talk about with Tennessee. How much will Treylon Burks play, and how will he perform? My take, I think, has been steady the whole time. I'm skeptical on Treylon Burks being effective in year 1, but I think he's going to play a ton. And sometimes it's enough to just be out there and play a ton as a first-round talent, and you can get there. And so I thought the hate on Treylon Burks, I thought the hype got too hype. The hate got too hate. There was somewhere in between that I think was right on Treylon Burks. I do think that he'll come off the bench behind Nick Westbrook-Akine and Robert Woods in week 1, but he'll start playing a lot. I mean, he just has to start playing a lot. So I'm excited to finally see football on guys like Treylon Burks, because there's just been I'm so tired of just talking about him. I want to see some football on Treylon Burks.
Yep, I'm with you. I don't have a whole lot to add there.
All right. That is going to do it for the first AFC team by team pod of the season. Be sure you're subscribed to our in-season package. You can catch me and Evan on Friday night and again on Sunday morning, talking through all your DFS lineups, start sit decisions. All that happens on Sunday morning. Friday night, me, Evan, and Wiggins talking through the DFS slate. All of Evan's matchups will be up Friday, and we'll have the audio version of that as well. If you don't want to read Evan's matchups, you don't like reading, no problem. We have a young man named Jake who will read it to you. Subscriber only podcast feed. Pretty incredible. All right. That's going to do it for Producer Luke, for Evan. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.